What's up? Welcome back. We are continuing on with building out a newsletter platform. And this is the step where we need to actually let users or authors create brand new newsletters. So let's go do that. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we have a good model in the database. So we'll say Rails G model newsletter. And this is going to have an author that created it, and it'll also have a title. We might want eventually to have like a description of what the newsletter is about, or images or things like that. But for now, we're going to keep it very simple and generate this very simple newsletter. Because we're saying that we're using this like newsletter author : references, that means that a newsletter will belong to an author. And because in our database, authors are using the users table, we need to modify our migration here so that it knows how to point at users. So instead of just saying foreign key true here, we need to say the to table is users. Now, notice that this is t.references. So under the hood, this is going to create a column in the database called author_ID. And by saying foreign key to table is users, it knows that that author ID should have a foreign key constraint on the users table's ID. So that's like kind of the first thing we need to do. The second thing we need to do is make sure that this is null and I don't know, default. Well, yeah, that should be good. So we're going to have a title, and we make sure that we have an author. And it's possible maybe that multiple authors have newsletters with the same title, like I don't know, the weather or the news, or I don't know, something like that. So we're just going to leave it like that, and we should be good to go. All right, so Rails DB migrate. Now we can open up our newsletter model, and you'll notice that it already has this belongs to association set up, and this says belongs to author. Now in Rails conventions, because author is pointing at the user model, we have to tell this association what the author is. So actually we need to say class name is user. This belongs to is going to have sort of like another side, right? So this association is from the newsletter to the author. We also need to go to the user table and say that a user has many newsletters, and that's pretty cool. So we're building another association. In this case, this is a has many association to newsletters. And the foreign key in this case is going to be author ID. And I think this can also just be a symbol, and we want this to be dependent destroy. So if we destroy the user, we also destroy all of their newsletters. All right, next up, we want to generate a controller that will let us create newsletters for users. So we're going to say Rails G controller newsletters, and we're going to have an index. That'll be the list of newsletters. We'll have a new, and we'll have an edit. These are the different views that we want to have for newsletters. We probably don't, well, yeah, we can probably also have a show. That'll be like the way that maybe you subscribe to the newsletter. So perhaps this index, new, and edit are only visible by the author of a newsletter, and the show is visible by the public, and the public can use this show route to sort of subscribe to a newsletter. I'm not sure if we want a separate concept of like newsletter subscriptions, but for now, we'll just keep it like this. And drive forward. This is going to add a bunch of routes. It's also going to create our controller and some views, some view directories, etc. So what I want to do is start by going in the routes, making sure that our routes are tidied up and have exactly what we want. So we'll jump over to the routes file. Instead of these 4 that it created for us by default, I'm going to use resources, newsletters, and that will create 7 different routes for us. 1 for retrieving the list, that's our index. 1 for retrieving the individual newsletter, that is the show. 1 for retrieving the form to create a new newsletter. 1 for retrieving the form to edit a newsletter. 1 for delete, and then 1 for create and 1 for update. So those are all going to be provided by this resources method. So let's jump into the newsletters controller. And here we're going to say like at newsletters is current user.newsletters. Okay. Now, what we want to do is make sure that we have a current user when we're loading up some of these views, right? And so what we can say is before action, we want to authenticate the user only for maybe index, create, new, edit, update, destroy, because we want the show route to be accept. We could actually do this a different way, accept show. That will make it so that we're going to authenticate the user for everything except the show route. And in fact, what I think we might want to do, yeah, let's authenticate the user no matter what. So if they want to subscribe, they need to be signed up. So we'll have some other flow that requires that they sign up, even if they're a reader. Okay, so for the new route, this is going to be the action that retrieves the form to create a new newsletter. So we can just do that. And when we create a new newsletter, we want to have this be for the current user. So at newsletter is going to be current user.newsletters.new newsletter params. We'll come back and add newsletter params in a moment. If the newsletter was saved, we want to redirect back to the index. Otherwise, we want to render this new route again, and we can have like unprocessable entity. We'll just do this for now. So before we get to edit, let's add our newsletter params. So let's go to the schema and look at newsletters, right? So we just have this title that we need to accept from the front end, right? So we're just basically, to create a newsletter, there will be a single input box, and that is where you write the title of your newsletter. And that's all that we need to allow to be passed in. So we can say params.require newsletter, permit title, and Copilot thinks that there should be a description. I like sort of hinted at that at the beginning. I don't know if it heard me. Okay. Next, we want to do the edit form. So if you are editing a newsletter, the title, I guess, of the newsletter, we want to first retrieve the newsletter, and then we want to update the newsletter. So if at newsletter.update for those same params, then we'll redirect back to the newsletter path, and otherwise we'll render edit with the same stuff. Okay. And finally for show, we'll just say at newsletter equals newsletter.find params ID. Now, the reason we are not using the current user here is that we want any of the readers to be able to view a specific newsletter. We probably want destroy here also, but we're going to skip that for now and we'll come back to it later. The next thing we need to do is go into our views for newsletters. Let's start with the index. And here we're going to just say something like at newsletter.each do n, and we're just going to print out n.title. That should be fine to start, right? So if we come over here and we go to like /newsletters, we shouldn't actually see anything. Oh, we need to sign in or sign up. Okay, good. So Jenny Rosen, close. What, did we not actually sign up? Oh, you know what? We didn't actually click our confirmation link. If we come back over to Rails console and we look at user.first, then I don't think they're going to be not confirmed. They are not confirmed. So we can say like user.first.update confirmed true. Can we do that? No. Okay, so let's send our devise mailer.confirmation instructions for user.first, and then there's user.first.confirmation token, and then nothing. I don't know. Let's see if that works. .deliver now. And then this should let us confirm. Okay, so your email address has been confirmed. Now we can check and see like user.first.confirmed. Okay, true. All right, so now we should be able to log in as jenny.rosen with password, and we are successfully logged in. Okay, close this. All right, so now we want to go to like /newsletters, and this should be our list of newsletters, but because we don't have any, we don't see anything. So let's also add just like an H1 of newsletters and refresh. Okay, so this is where our newsletters are going to be. So maybe we should add a link. So say newsletters /new. So like add. Okay, refresh. Now this is a link. Okay, now this is our form for creating a new newsletter. So we'll come back over to our new form and we're going to say like create a newsletter. And we need a form here. The action is going to be to /newsletters, and the method is going to be post. And we're just going to have, for now, we'll just have an input. Well, we need a, input type is text, and the name is going to be newsletter user. Nope, newsletter title. And so this should be fine to start. And then we need a button, right? Create newsletter. Okay, we refresh the page. And there is an input here. It's hard to see because nothing is styled. Also, this is a button, but it's also hard to see. So we will just, for now, we're just going to say like test and click on create newsletter. And we can see like now that test was created for us. So this actually worked. But it's pretty nasty, right? I think we want to start adding in some styling pretty soon, but let's just get this flow down. Let's also make it so that we can edit a newsletter. So we have this create newsletter. Let's go back to our list of newsletters, and next to test, let's add an edit button. So inside of here, we'll just say something like link to edit. And this is going to be like the edit newsletter path for newsletter. And if we refresh, now we have an edit link. Param is missing, or the value is empty for newsletter. That's because our newsletters controller, I did this wrong. So the edit, this is actually update. Edit should be just def. Okay. The edit route is where we retrieve the edit form, and the update route is where we're sending like the post request to update it. So let's see here. Okay, so this is newsletters edit. So our newsletters edit page is going to be super similar to our new page with one small or a couple of small changes. So we're just going to say, okay, edit or like update, and then we'll put in the title of the newsletter, update this. And instead of our action going to just like /newsletters, this needs to be like the newsletter path so that it includes the ID in the query string. And then we also want to put like a value in here being at newsletter dot, and then we're just going to say update newsletter. Okay, so now we see test, and then we'll say test 2.3 whatever, update newsletter, and that did not work. Okay, why didn't it work? Let's look in our route here. No route matches post for newsletter /1. So this is another Rails thing. Right now, this form is sending a post request to the single route, but we actually want this input type of hidden. Okay, so this hidden input with underscore method as the name is going to like sort of trick Rails into treating this post request as a patch request, which will let us go through the update action instead of the create action. So we need to add that, and then we'll say test 323, click update, and now we have test 323 as one of our newsletters. All right, so now we have the CRUD flow. It's not CRUD because it doesn't have a destroy yet, but we have a flow where we can create newsletters. And this feels like a good stopping point. Let's style some stuff up in the next episode. We'll create a landing page and then start bringing in some Tailwind UI so that we can make this look a little bit better as we're continuing to work on building out things like creating issues. All right, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.